Welcome to the I Work For Me podcast. I'm Melina Lewis, an author, marketer, yoga teacher, and mom, and I'm passionate about people who have created their own business opportunities and who love the freedom of working for themselves. Welcome to the I Work For Me podcast. This is Melina Lewis, and today I am chatting to a lovely lady called Gill Jorgenson, and she is an executive assistant. And I'm sure in this time of COVID, we've all been hearing about virtual PAs and virtual assistants, which have been around, yes, for many years, but it's just become like the thing at the moment. And I am so excited to chat to her because I have secretly mentioned that I wouldn't mind having myself a little virtual assistant, but I actually just don't even know how to even go about that process. So I'm thrilled to have Gill. She's going to tell me how to do all this stuff, and we're going to share and also tell us her journey in terms of how she ended up here. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Gill. Welcome, Gill.
Hi, thanks, Melina. It's so nice to meet you.
Yes, and you too, definitely. Gill, before we kind of jump in and I can then pick your brain, won't you tell us what was the first thing you remember wanting to be as a little girl?
I've wanted to be a teacher.
Wow.
I dreamed of being a teacher.
That's amazing. And did you study teaching?
Nope. I didn't have the opportunity to study teaching, unfortunately. But I have worked as executive PA to heads of school. Right. So I've been involved in school and education as well as the corporate world. So yeah, it kind of evolved from there. So my love of teaching and my love of learning and reading and what have you, has just always been part of who I am.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing. So you ended up in the environment that you wanted to be in, even though you weren't necessarily standing up in front of the class, you were in the place that you wanted to be. So can you tell us, what was your journey that brought you to becoming an executive assistant, and then also how that morphed into a virtual assistant?
So I suppose when I left school, there was quite a lot of transition going on at the time, and so the teaching colleges were at that time changing the way they accepted students, etc. And I was not able to go. It was just one of those things. So I floundered for a couple of years. Funnily enough, I was bound and determined not to be a executive PA or a PA or a secretary or any of those things. I was never going to be that, never. And I floundered around a while, you know, like everybody, you have to do something. Well, I had to. Parents were not of this gap year story. They were never having it. And so I landed up working at an insurance firm. And then I moved from Joburg to Durban, and I landed up at Sasco Flour Mills. And then they had a junior secretary position that came available, and I applied and I got the job, which was like, yo, okay. And then they sent me on this weird program called Microsoft Office. I had to go and learn how to do all these fancy things. And then over the years, I worked my way up to a regional, what they then called the regional secretary. So I worked for the national regional manager, or whatever he was called. And I then dealt with the different mills around South Africa with him. And then it kind of morphed from there. I did a lot of self-teaching. I went on many courses. I learned a lot of things. And then my career sort of just moved from there. I landed up at IBM. My then boss left IBM and asked me to go with him. He started his own company. We were then bought out by a company called Faratech. I then was with the sales director at Faratech. And then my kids were young and I got the opportunity to move into the school world. Now, let's pause for a minute, because everybody thinks, oh, look at that. You're going to work half a day and then you're going to have all this wonderful time with your children. Probably that's what happens in your mind. It's not really what in reality. And so I worked for various heads of school, and 2 years ago, my son, who was then in junior primary, or was then in primary school, came to me one day and he said to me, Mommy, it's getting dark outside. Do you think we can go home? And I suddenly thought, I'm available to everybody else's children all day. And by the time I get home from working with all these children and all the parents that come with the children, I had nothing left for my own family. I was also not particularly well at the time. And thank goodness I had quite a supportive husband who then said, okay, well, let's step away. Let's take a breath. Let's chill. So I sort of stepped away and took some time to figure out what I wanted to do and just rest and get well. And then I thought, there's no way I'm going to be this PA person to my husband, because that's a story for another day. That would never work. And so I realized I had these skills. So what was I going to do? I didn't want to go back to clock in, clock out. I didn't want to reporting to somebody. I knew all the things I didn't want to do, but I didn't have a clue what I was going to do. Okay. And then I was around on the internet, and look at that, this virtual assistant thing popped up. And I thought, well, what is that? So I did some research, and then I realized it's me, but I'm sitting here and you're sitting there, and I'm a business owner and you're a business owner, and I provide a service and you want an outcome. And it was a match made in heaven. And that's literally how your executive assistant was born. As simple as that. I just sat up and I just decided, this is what I'm going to do. I did research. I did a lot of research. So I spent about 2 weeks really researching, figuring out, looking at different sites, trying to figure out how this all works. And then one day it was cold and wet and miserable in Durban. And I decided, today's the day. I bought a domain. I registered a domain name. I downloaded Canva, didn't have a clue how to use it, created a logo, and said, here I am.
Amazing. But okay, so now you've been out of corporate for a while. You were now in the school environment. Now you're a virtual PA. How did you get clients?
I think in the beginning, it was a bit of spray and pray, to be honest. Okay. So I just everywhere. When people asked, do you have the skill? I used to just say yes. And then I'd go and learn how to do it. I'd go and figure it out. Yes, I can. Can you do this? I absolutely can. No problem. 100% confident, quivering in my shoes, and then figured it out as I went along. So it really was, in the beginning, quite a journey, because it's very different. I was lucky insofar as I went to a networking event, and you do this 30-second, it's like speed dating. It's very strange.
Yeah.
Very odd. And I don't think I'm particularly good at it, but there was a gentleman in the room who thought I was really good. I thought, okay. And we connected again around schooling and what have you. And I found an article later on, and I emailed it to him. I said, I remembered what we chatted about. I saw this article. It might be of worth you have a look. And about 3 weeks later, he finally said, I have a project. Would you like to partner with me and be my lead admin?
And that was that.
And it evolved.
Amazing. And then, so how many clients do you juggle at the same time? Do you have like a max, or is it just kind of you pass on? How does that work?
At the moment, I have worked out how many hours I want to work in a month, and what my income ratio needs to be to support that.
Right.
And I take on work like that. I have one client that I work for consistently, and then I have clients that come that might be project-based or a short-term contract or whatever. So that's kind of how I work. I'm designing a life of my design. So I've kind of decided the maximum hours in the month I want to work. And
Right.
then we work around that.
Brilliant. Okay. And I'm sure your kids are happier with that too.
Yeah, well, I have 2 grown men who are 25 and 22.
Wow.
And
Okay.
then a baby who is 16, will be 16 in March. So he's not really a baby. But this is when schooling gets hectic. This is when life gets crazy, when you move into senior high and you're getting ready for matric. And this is actually when it's like at the baby phase, they really need you. And then they're pretty independent. And then they get to senior high where there's a lot of demand on their time and a lot of stuff going on. And so I really wanted to be available for Caleb at this point, to be able to say, okay, so you need this from me. It's not a problem. I'll show whatever, because I can be available during this time now, which corporate doesn't really allow. It doesn't allow.
I know. Well, you've just shattered all of my kind of delusions about being the mother of a teenager. Mine are still primary school. I've got one finishing primary school this year, and he's going to then go to high school next year. And I'm like, right, they go to high school. That's like, and then varsity, and like, right, done, And now you're telling me, no, they're coming back with big problems at 16. I'm like, oh no.
I just think they're such a funny age then. They're not, but they're not babies anymore. So they're finding who they are. They're trying to define their identity, figure out who they want to be, what they want to be. I mean, there's huge demands on them at the moment. Choose your subject choice for your life career. Who at 15 knows that?
I know. It's ridiculous.
It's huge pressure for them.
Yeah.
So, if I can carve out a bit of time and say, okay, you've had a tough week, let's go and have a milkshake. Let's go, boy. How about we go down to the beach and we just chill, and we'll come home when let's do that.
I love
that. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. That's super, super exciting. Okay, let's go. Now that I've interjected some motherhood stuff there, let's kind of like backtrack to your business. So in setting up your business, it sounds as though it was quite like quick and easy and plug and play. Was there anything that you just kind of jumped into it and got going? Was there anything that you kind of realized after you needed that you didn't realize at the time that you would kind of maybe forewarn other people about?
I think there was a lot that I didn't know.
Okay.
But at the same time, I was willing to just try.
Okay.
So for me, I think that it would be that. I think having a very clear idea of who and what you want to serve would be helpful. Knowing or having an accounting system set up would be helpful. There's a lot of them out there. And just having processes in place. I mean, I jumped in with no process, and I'd figure it out as I went along. It can be a bit hair-raising because you're in the middle of something and you're thinking, I don't know how to do this, but I don't know how to re-engineer what I've already done. So how do I go from here? Luckily, I had, like I said, I had a really supportive husband. I think for me, entrepreneurs that are coming in, I mean, I had a business coach sort of in the middle of my journey, which I found really helpful to strategize with and understand. I mean, she really made me work hard on why am I doing this? Like, what is my why? Because that should drive your business. Why are you doing it?
Yes.
Really, if your answer is money, that's really okay.
Yeah.
Say that.
Totally.
Own it.
Yeah.
I want to earn money. I don't want to have a ceiling on my salary. Whatever it is. I have a different story, but again, I want freedom. It always seems to come back to that. That women in my environment, we want to be free to make decisions that suit us and our families.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that for me, I think the processes were the biggest thing for me, is I didn't have them, and I was learning on the go. And that can be both exciting and absolutely terrifying.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I'm a rebel without a cause when it comes to processes. I kick and scream against them. So yeah, it is a huge challenge to get that up, especially if it's not your natural way of doing things, you know. So yeah, good advice for people to get their ducks in a row, as they say. But I want to know, in terms of a virtual PA, because I think there is huge benefit in having someone help you, you know, even, I mean, just the idea of kind of being able to say, hi, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? You know, so almost acting as a sounding board. I want to know, like, how do people find you? What are they looking for? What kinds of services are you providing? You know, because if I had to think about it, what I would look, I need this like very kind of dynamic person that needs to be able to do a little bit of social media, a little bit of writing, you know, maybe doing some invoicing. And I'm like, does anyone else out there exist like that you can pay for and afford, you know, or are virtual PAs only a certain set of things? Like, do they only set up appointments, or, you know, I'm clear, I've never ever had a secretary, so I wouldn't know, you know. So how does it, like, what can people expect when you kind of, the idea of having, I'll get my virtual PA to call you. You know, I love the sound of that. It's just so glamorous, you know. I want one of those. But I swear, I'm sure that if I had a virtual PA, I'd be like, I don't know what you have to do today. Sorry, I don't know. So tell me, how do people work with you and use you effectively?
Okay, so first of all, because I have an executive PA background, when you work for C-suite and heads of school, you basically become a jack of all trades.
Right.
You learn everything. You juggle 60,000 balls because that's what's in the air at any one given time.
Right.
So I have huge skills in that environment. Some ladies have niched right down and they only offer a service. I don't. I offer an executive PA service. So in other words, if you had a secretary sitting outside your door, what would you give her to do? So everything. She would do, well, pretty much. The only thing in that case I can't do is I cannot provide a beverage. I can order them in and they can arrive, but I myself cannot go and get you a beverage or lunch. And then I do social media. So it has become, it was one of those things, I'm never doing it. And then I kind of fell into it. And actually I love it because it gives me a chance to be creative. And who knew that I was quite creative? I didn't know. Who knew that I could think out of the box and give you a different kind of image to use rather than run of the mill? Who knew that I could do that? I didn't know that I could do it, but I fell in, and that's part of it. That part of my job really lets me be creative in a different kind of way. How you would work with me, I always say, before you're going to engage with a virtual PA, I would put a piece of paper on your desk and have a pen. And as you're doing a task that really drives you insane, add it to I want my PA to do this list. And you just in them. And then you engage with somebody and or then you put it out, I would imagine, on the social. So for me, I work in entrepreneurial groups. Referral is huge for me. My clients are happy with me, refer me all the time, which is great. And so I'm on the socials. I should be on LinkedIn, but I have to tell you that I've been lazy. So not what it should be at this point. Oh, goodness gracious me. I don't suppose that's a good advert, but I can say in my defense that I'm so busy doing everything for my clients, I let my own self slide last year.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And you know what, I'll get to it. It's okay. But yes, that's how you would do it. And then you would engage with somebody like me and you would say, okay, Jill, these are the tasks I have. that are in order of priority for me. So the most important things that I need help with right now are X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
Then those. And then as you grow, I grow with you.
Right.
Because you have it. You have X amount that you could afford to engage me with.
Right.
And then we work it out from there. As you grow, I grow with you.
Okay.
Because you start handing over more. I also understand that for you to trust me with part of your business is a huge thing.
Huge.
You've never worked with me. It can be quite daunting. This is your baby. You've birthed this baby, and now you need to hand over part of that baby to somebody and hope they get you, can speak your language, can understand where you want to go with your business. It's a huge thing. And I get that, which is why also I've created small bite-sized offers so that you can almost toe dip, give it a try, see for you.
Yes.
So you buy amounts of hours, we have an outcome at the end of the day. Do you know, so very clear tasks and outcomes so that you know what you're getting at the end, what you're going to get for those 10 hours, and then we go. And if you like it, you buy another 10 hours. Or if you're in a position, you say, right, I want a retainer for 20 hours a month. I get to call on you for 20 hours. This is how we do it.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Reasonably simple.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So it's an hours-based thing. You kind of like, you can use as many hours as you need, and then you kind of just clock your time. So are you using any kind of system to, because I mean, a lot of us in the service industry are always, you know, working out hours worked. Are you using any kind of online tool or anything that you would recommend for people to clock time?
So there's Clockify, and you can do it on Trello, and you can do it in HubSpot. You can do it on those. I have to tell you that I prefer not to work like that. I prefer to work on a retainer basis. Okay. So if I'm going to do a retainer with you, obviously not my buy sales offer, but as we go along, I then do a proof of concept. So we work out, we have a conversation, and I say to you, okay, for what you want, I'm guessing this is going to take 30 hours, between 20 and 30 hours, let's just say. We go middle of the road. We say, okay, we're going to do 25 hours. And for the next 2 months, I'm going to track every single thing that I do for you so that to the half hour, not to the minute.
Yes.
Then we're going to look at it and we're going to say, okay, we're going to do a proof of concept for 2 months. And then we're going to say, okay, be over or under. And if we are over consistently, then I say to you, no, it's definitely the 30 hours. We underspec this. Or if I'm getting to the end, I'm keeping track of your hours, because one of my brand promises is that and my brand values is honesty and integrity. So if I'm getting to, we're going to run out of month and you've got too many hours left, I'm coming back to you and I'm saying, I obviously worked too fast, or we didn't spec this properly. We've got too many hours. What do you want to do? Give me something else.
Okay.
That's how we do it. I just find that when you do it hourly based, it's open to abuse on both sides. I've done a lot of research on it, and a lot of the VA forums are saying that it's really open to abuse, because what you believe I should be able to do in X amount of time and what I can do in X amount of time is not always
the same.
Doesn't always match. And people who want you to clock to absolute minutes, I think, are to a degree under the impression that I'm your employee. I'm not your employee. I am a business owner, just like you.
Yes.
I'm not there to give you a resume. I'm not there to clock in at 8 in the morning and leave at whatever time. I'm there to say, you have X amount of tasks that you want done. This is your outcome. Want emails checked by X time every day? That's fine. That can be done. But that doesn't mean that I clock in at 8 o'clock and check your emails. We have an agreement. We have a clear agreement of expectations from both sides. Because I'm not your employee.
Oh, and I like that because I'm allergic to the employee word. So I love that it's someone else. It's more like it's like working with a peer. And I think, you know, the traditional look and idea around a PA or an executive assistant is very much someone who belongs to you and you can just do with them whatever you like. If you just think of like The Devil Wears Prada and all of those, I mean, hilarious, right? But in your case, it's very much cool. You're on my team. If you can just, you know, these are your things that I'm farming out to you, make it happen by X time. And I think that's, yeah, I find it a much better way to work with people. You know, you're an expert at what you do, so just go out there and make it happen. So, I mean, in terms of like moving from that very corporate or school environment, because schools are also very traditional in like you clock in, you clock out, you have your tea at 11 and lunch is at 1 and at break time and all of that kind of stuff. And everything is very structured. It's quite tricky when you move into working for yourself. So how did you kind of create this lifestyle in terms of how you work? And what were some of the adjustments you maybe needed to make to actually, you know, work optimally? It's very easy to kind of fall off the wagon, you know.
Yeah. And shiny object syndrome is a big deal, right? Because in the beginning, everything looks attractive. Everything. It's there's nothing that's out of bounds because everything is new. Everything is shiny. Everything is fun. So I think the biggest thing for me was one of my biggest adjustments was realizing that I don't have to ask anybody if I don't want to work today. Wow, that was a little bit like, okay, so what the hell do I do today? I realized, like, I've got all this time. Like, I'm up to date with all the stuff that my clients need, and I've got all this time. So what do I do now? I can actually go and have my hair done. I can actually go and have my nails done. I can actually go and meet a friend for coffee. And I'm not saying to somebody, oh, well, I need 2 hours off because Caleb is in a play or whatever. I just go.
Yeah.
So a little bit of I had a shift from being an employee to a business owner. And that's kind of a mind shift. Because for the better part of 25 years, I'd been an employee. Where you're asking for leave, you're filling in leave forms, you're asking, can you please go because your child has got something on, you beholden to somebody else. And now the person that you are beholden to is you. And if you want your business to succeed, you have to work at it. I think the other thing that I really had to do is I had to put boundaries in regarding my time, because it was so easy when you're building a business, and I still very much am in the building phase. When you're building a business, it's really easy to miss dinners because you need to just do this, and you need to just watch this, and you need to just be in this course, and you need to just be online, and there's a lot of just happening. So I had to, for the first couple of months, you're in it because you don't have a choice. You've got to, you're learning as you go. So it is a little bit hair raising for a while, but you have that conversation with your family and hopefully you can figure that out. And then you put your boundaries in place. So for me, Sunday is a no work zone. Cool. The world is falling down. I don't really care. If ahead of time we have negotiated, because you have a massive launch coming, there's whatever, we've negotiated my Sunday ahead of time. I've prepped my family ahead of time. It's not a surprise. It's whatever. So sort of from Saturday lunchtime for me to Monday morning, it's not work time. That's very much time. That's why I do this. That's why I do what I do. And then I also realized that in order for my business to succeed, I couldn't allow my clients to dictate to me. This was my business. I had a client who wanted to dictate how I would work and when they would pay me. And I was like, at first, you're new to this game, and your habit is to say, okay, because for 25 years you've said, okay.
Sure.
And then I realized that, no, actually it's not okay. These are the terms of my business, my rules.
Yeah.
How it works in my, and if that doesn't work for you, then I'm not your person.
Yes.
Then you look for somebody else. So I think that for me, if I think of the top of my head, I was like really, it took me a while to figure it out, but if you don't put boundaries in place, you exhaust yourself. It is vital. You have to factor it in, because you are working with so many different personalities all the time that at some point you have to decompress and just say, okay, it's okay. I can step away. The world's not going to end because I've said no, or I can't, or this doesn't suit me right now.
Yes, exactly. And there are ways of doing that, right? That's way and managing it.
Yeah, and you are just kind. I like to believe that I'm kind but firm. There's something that's it's not happening, but I'm kind and I'm firm, and I believe that it is for the betterment of our working relationship that we both understand the rules ahead of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, because it's always the devil's in the detail in terms of like how things unravel, so being able to set those terms up. Yeah, I'm curious, because I feel like I'm just going to use myself, because I know that, like, I feel like I'm quite chaotic. What if how do you manage your clients? So, I mean, it's great that you've got kind of your rules and how your things work, but I know, like, I will work until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. It's not that I expect anybody else to be working at that time, but yeah, I mean, do you find that you sometimes need to manage your clients, as well as just do stuff for them? Or how do you work with tricky ones?
Okay, so I have my client, because of the ladies that I serve, and it is primarily ladies that I serve, and they are primarily in the business of uplifting others. So their boundaries also, like, sometimes a little bit shaky. It is what it is. I'm very process driven, and part of being a personal assistant is to be able to say, Melina, we have a deadline and I haven't got anything from you. Our deadline is we've agreed that you need to have this out by X day. If that's what we've got to do, I need stuff from you today. Prepping you along the way. I'm sending you reminders and I'm keeping you on track. And we have a Trello board, or we have a Basecamp, or we have Google Sheets, or whatever works for us. We have that going in the background, where we are in constant communication. It's not like you hand it over and I disappear into this black hole. We're in constant communication. We're on WhatsApp, we're on Telegram, and we're communicating. And I'm saying, remember, you have that podcast with that chick. Have you sent her? Have you, your podcast is due. I haven't seen you come out with it. We haven't done the script. We haven't done whatever it is you need. So I'm process driven. I'm driving you in the background to get the stuff from you, to allow me to deliver what you're expecting. But I do it firmly but kindly. And very often you are not aware of the fact that I'm pushing you in the direction that I need you to go so that we meet your outcome. That is part of working with somebody who has had 25 years experience. If you're somebody who's a new kid on the block, she might not have those skills. I don't know. I can't comment on that. But that's so, because I like processes. I like to know that in order to have this outcome, we have to achieve this, and then this, and then this. So how are we going to do that? Do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. And these are the timeframes in order to meet that. Otherwise, we're going to be in panic mode, and that's not a happening thing under my watch. I don't like that at all.
I love you.
I understand that it's chaos. I understand that there can be chaos, but there's not going to be panic. It's going to be organized panic. It's not going to, oh, I don't know what to do now. We're not having that.
Oh no, that's classic. That's classic. You make me laugh. I was watching Modern Family, and it's the wedding. I don't know if you watch Modern Family. It's the wedding of the brother and his partner, the gay wedding. And it's, I mean, and the wedding organizer, what's his name? Pepper. And it was this microphone, and they're moving the wedding all about, and it's like it's that organized where it's like everything's fine. Meantime, there's a fire rolling down the mountainside. So
that's exactly what's happening.
Oh, that's classic. I love that. Yeah. Okay, so you know, just in terms of, you have had this amazing experience, you know, and that's what you bring to the party, and I'm sure that's what people are paying for. But, you know, I mean, maybe now some people are finding themselves either unemployed, you know, the boss can't keep a PA anymore, or they've decided they're done with old boss, and they're wanting to set up their own thing, or maybe they are a school leaver who is passionate about process and organization. What would be your recommendation for setting up the kind of business that you have? Because I know there are companies that do virtual PAs, you know, and they farm out the PAs and stuff. So, you know, would you recommend that they go and they work for something like that first and then progress, or start from the beginning? Yeah. What do you think it takes to be a virtual PA?
I think there's a lot of scope for young ladies and men, in fact, young guys who want to design, etc., to get into this. For me, and I'll talk now futuristically, because my dream is that my business will grow and I will be able to take these young people on board, and they will literally intern with me for a year.
Amazing.
But while they're interning with me for a year, their processes will be put in place. They will work for me, but they will invoice me as if they are a business owner.
Right.
And that's how they'll learn. They'll learn by doing, by act, you know, and I will be able to share the pitfalls that I found, the things that I thought, oh no, there has to be a cleverer way to do this. And just kind of take them by the hand and say, it's okay, just breathe. It works, but you got to follow a process. So let's do the process and get you going. And after a year, you have to move on, because you're creating space for a new intern.
Right.
So it's not, you can stay with me forever. The idea is that you are a business owner in your own right, but you're kind of under an umbrella for a year. And then you've got to move on out of the umbrella so somebody new can come in. So that's my dream. I think young people who have no experience can't ever use the word executive, because they've got no clue.
Right.
You've got no idea what that means, how available you have to be, how on top of your game you have to be. It's the same as a person who's 25 want to tell me they're a life coach.
We're on the same page about that one.
You know, I'm loving you, but maybe you want to be a coach to teenagers, because that you could definitely do, because you've just come through this whole, you know, thing as the parents of that teenager, we don't maybe always get it. But say that you're a life coach to an adult woman who has children, and you've not lived yet, baby. You've not lived. It's the same as you can't tell me you're an executive PA and you are 20 years old. You haven't done it. So you have to have life experience. You have to bump your head. You have to understand what happens in the background. how it all hangs together. Because like you said at the beginning when we were talking, part of what I offer is a sounding board. Part of what I offer is okay, I want to try this. How are we going to make it work? And then figure it out, because that's what you need. But without experience, how are you going to guide somebody through that? It's not to say you can't get the experience. You can. It's not to say you mustn't start. You must. But be clever.
And learn from someone who's amazing. Like that's, you know, I believe in internship. I believe in working for people who are ideally 1,000 times smarter than you'll ever be. You know, that's the ideal. You want to not just work for someone who looks good on your CV, but for someone you know you can learn a lot from, someone who's going to be hard on you, because that's the only way that you'll actually grow. Yeah. So I agree with you completely on that front. It is definitely a process, and you want someone who knows what they're doing. That's the biggie. You know, you don't want to have to kind of handhold your own PA. That's just not going to cut it.
No, and I don't do micromanagement well at all.
No,
because
neither do I.
If you could do it, then you could do it. You wouldn't need me. So you do what you do, and I do what I do.
And then we'll be good.
You're in your zone of genius, and I'm in my zone of genius, and then we get the job done.
I know.
So it's not. I really don't do well with micromanagement, and that I say when I'm in the discovery call, I say that up front. I'm very forthright about that, because I know that it will cause such drama between me and my client going forward that I'm honest about how I work, why I do the things I do, and how. And if I'm not your person, that's okay. There is a person out there for you, but it won't be me if you want to lean over my shoulder all the time.
So, I mean, before we kind of end off, you've just kind of highlighted being able to say no and maybe turning business away when someone isn't your person. Did you do that from the get-go, or is that something that you've had to build up? Because I think you need to be quite confident to tell someone to go. We're not making happiness here.
Yeah, you know what? I have to say that in the beginning I didn't, because you don't actually know. Well, in my case, because I decided one day I'm doing this. That's it, I'm doing this. I have to figure this out now, and I'm doing it. And it took time for me to realize, I mean, I knew things in the back of my head, right? I knew things like, don't micromanage me, don't nag me. You've handed it over, trust me to do it, kind of thing. I knew, and then I would get a bit grumpy, like honestly and truly, you know. But you learn that, and then you learn that if you don't say to somebody, we're not a good fit, it's going to ultimately damage your reputation, because they say you didn't deliver. Right. And you can't defend that. You cannot defend that saying, yeah, but there is no yeah, but they're the client, and you didn't deliver on your promises.
Yes.
So I've had to learn to say, you know what, we've done this for a bit. I really think that I'm not your person, but I have somebody that I can refer you to who I think actually would be perfect for you. And I do that. I do that gladly, because there are people for people. That's the reality. I know. There needs to be a chemistry, because there's trust issues. At the beginning of our journey, there will be trust issues. There will be trust issues for me, that you're actually going to value me as part of your team, that you're going to treat me as a team member and not an employee, that you're going to value my input, because sometimes I do know how to do it faster and smarter, that we work faster and smarter. We don't have to go via Bloemfontein to get something done. And in turn, there's trust issues for you. Like, am I really going to be able to do what I've said I'm going to do? Safe for you to give me your scripts for your social media, for your imagery, because am I really going to get your voice? Am I going to understand? And
that's huge.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. And I have to say that I am blessed, really, really blessed. In the years of experience that I've had, I learned to speak your voice very quickly.
Okay.
I can adapt very quickly to understand your messaging and why you're doing what you're doing, and then speak as we go. So I give it to you, you say, yeah, I like this, but don't like this, and I don't like this. I would rather have said, and I learn very quickly to speak your voice. So I'm able to answer your emails because it's almost as if you are speaking to them because I've learned your language. And that's a skill with experience. That comes with experience. So yeah. I think for me, for young people, I'll just say for young people, for a few tips, just getting into it, the things that I think are vital for you to have at your fingertips. If somebody says to me, should I start? Must I do this? I'll say, go now. If not today, no, you're going to do it. Go. Run. Do it. You'll learn. You will learn. But, and here's the big but, there are things you need in the background. Get yourself a tribe of like-minded women. Surround yourself with people who are on the same journey as you, not necessarily at the same point in the journey, but the same, because they understand when you say, I'm having a crisis, I can't do this, I don't understand. They bring wisdom to the table. And they are your biggest supporters. Because yes, your family supports you, but if they're not business builders, they don't understand what you're talking about. They don't understand why you're having a mini meltdown because you couldn't get a Facebook page to work. Like, okay, so do it again tomorrow. What's up with that?
Like, story of my life, like sobbing and the hair pulling as the Facebook won't do what you want it to do.
And then you need an accountability partner who's not like you at all. So you need somebody who's completely opposite to you. So they kick your ass.
And it's that yin and that yang, right? To be the whole in terms of the business, you can't be everything, right? And so it fills that gap. Yeah.
And so I have an accountability partner who I meet with once a week. And I put on the table, we meet on a Monday, what do I want to achieve by Friday? And then I have outcomes and we check in with each other on a Wednesday. How far are you with this? What can I do?
That gives
what do I need?
Gives me I'm not an anxious person at all. There's like very little, it's like it fills my little toe in terms of, but the thought of that, someone checking in on me, I'm like, do not check on me. I will get it done. But at the 99th hour.
Well, my accountability partner, she is that chick. She works under pressure.
It's terrible. It's not ideal.
Which is quite funny, but we complement each other. So I'm a sounding board for her. I want to launch this, Gill, and I'm not really, can we sit for 15 minutes? Can we just figure out what these are the steps I want to follow. What do you think, kind of thing? That's what accountability brings. And then, so your first step in your process is, when do you want to have that done by? Because all of us are shiny object syndrome. I don't care what anybody says. You'll see something on Facebook, you'll see something on the news, and you get distracted and you get off your goal. Your goal is to have this done by this time, and that's what an accountability partner is. Also, your diary is your best friend. Schedule everything. So from fetching your kids from school, your hair appointment in 3 months' time, your nails, your doctor, your dentist, everything goes in your diary, and you use one diary so that when clients are booking time with you, you know exactly what time you have available, I would say. And then I'm with a great business coach even now, and in fact I manage her online, her group coaching. So I get coaching and I get to serve her at the same time. So it's like the best of both worlds for me.
Totally.
Yeah. And one of her things that she taught me last year that we went through was having a keyless life as an entrepreneur. And I kind of went, what are you talking about? And she said, automate your personal life.
Okay.
Automate your personal life. And I never thought about that. But I have adopted exactly that. And I tell my clients it all the time. So I'll give you an example. I can't drink from the tap water. I have to drink bottled water. I only have one kidney, so it is what it is. So what was happening is I would fetch Caleb from school, and then twice a week I would have to go and get water. So the round trip on 2 days of my week, by the time I'd got water and fetched Caleb, was 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Now 2.5 hours out of a day, a long time. So I automated getting it delivered. That's it.
Simple.
I now win my time back because I'm not going, don't have to put the flipping bottles in the car. I don't have to think, oh, shit, I've forgotten to order water again. And now I've got it turned into a nightmare. My hair appointments are booked to September.
Yeah.
Nail appointments are booked till the end of March. Everything I've automated. So we have in this country, as you well know, we have 60/60, we have whatever. Create your shopping list that you buy every single week. Create it on platforms. On a Sunday night, press go. Key in your card. It's delivered to you. It's given you back an hour and a half.
Totally.
You haven't had about it. You don't have to suddenly realize, oh, I don't have bread and milk and cheese for the kids' lunch.
And dog food.
A dog food. But those are the kind of things and that's a simple thing, right? So you automate the processes as much as you can.
Right. No, you're so right. You're so right. And I'm just like, oh, yes, I must do that. I must do the online shopping for the breads and milks. Like, come on, surely, it's obvious, but yes, getting the A into G. That's so true. That is so true. So, sure. Gill, you could definitely whip my ass into gear. That's for certain. I think that's a challenge you would accept, though. It's one of those that you pass on. But it's been really stunning chatting to you. And how do people get hold of you?
So at the moment, you can find me on Facebook at executive-assistant.
Right.
Or Gill Jorgenson. So it's Gill with a G and Jorgenson with a J. And it's Jorgenson. Or at www.yourexecutive-assistant.com.
Divine. That's great. Super, super, super. Thank you so much. It's been amazing chatting to you. And I hope that many people will feel more confident in going out there and seeking the help of an executive assistant or a virtual PA, and making their lives smarter and easier, right? For sure.
There are skills out there to make your life easier. So thank you so much for inviting me. It's been great. It's been so much fun.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Super.
Thank you for listening to the I Work For Me podcast. I hope you enjoyed this interview and that you feel inspired to take your idea and business to the next level, not only for yourself, but for fellow South Africans too. Please listen in weekly for interviews with more interviews with South Africa's most inspiring people, and connect with me on Facebook or Instagram at Melina Lewis Author, or on YouTube at Melina Lewis, or if you don't mind, consider supporting the show for a few rand a month by finding me on Patreon at Melina Lewis. Have a great week and namaste.